For the next session, we will be having a forum entitled MTR the Way Forward. This session will be conducted by Dr. Ahmad Ibrahim Kamal Batcha, Emergency and Trauma Physician from Hospital Kuala Lumpur. I will let him take the liberty to introduce our esteemed panelists as well. Dr. Ibrahim, the stage is yours.
Assalamualaikum and good morning. So our next session will be an exciting forum session. So we will be having 4 distinguished panelists for this 1-hour session. So our first panelist, I would like to invite Dr. Shah Jahan to the stage. He is the MTR chairman and also consultant trauma physician from Hospital Sungai Buloh. He is also the head of trauma medicine subspecialty, Ministry of Health Malaysia, as well as president of Mascot. Okay. Dr. Shah Jahan. Our second panelist will be Mr. Zari Hafiz Zulkifli, Head of Vulnerable Road User Safety and Mobility Unit, or in short form, ROOM, from Malaysian Institute of Road Safety Research, MIROS. Please, you're welcome to the stage. Our third panelist will be Dr. Noraida binti Muhammad Marzuki, Deputy Director of Section Pusat Informatik Kesihatan. She's also a public health medicine specialist. Give a round of applause. And last but not least, our fourth panelist is Dr. Muhammad Zulfadli Hafiz Ismail, public health medicine specialist. He is currently in the biostatistic and data repository sector at the NIH. He has great interest in open science and plays a very important role in the development of big data ecosystem for NIH. Please give a round of applause for all our panelists today. Okay, so I would like to welcome all our panelists. It will be a very interactive session. But we wouldn't entertain any question from the floor for this session. So the questions will go to all the panelists. There will be a total of about 10 questions. So hopefully we can benefit from this session. Right. Okay. So I would like to ask our first question to Dr. Shah Jahan, who's the MTR chairman. Okay. My first question to you will be, why is there a need for trauma registry in Malaysia?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum. Salam, selamat pagi semua. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairperson, Dr. Ibrahim. So if I may take the first question. Malaysia stands organized categorized as one of the higher middle income countries. And when it comes to stratification of risk in road safety, as well as trauma death, we unfortunately stand to be among the highest within our peers within this region. At current, we have a total standing of about 20 out of every 100,000 deaths. In order for us to take very strategic efforts to reduce this death, the evidence-based approach that there is will have to be a form of a database. In order for us to achieve those targets, especially the ones which have been set by WHO, the sustainable goals to reduce 50% of death within the 10 years up to 2030, we need parameters, we need eyes and ears, we need data to work on And whatever resources that we have needs to be invested in the right places. The only way we are able to get answers to this is by having real-time local demographic database on injury surveillance as well as perhaps trauma outcomes and survival. For that, one of the main short-term goal reasons, I think the registry is today being developed in order for us to have a clear path looking forward. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you for that answer. So previously we didn't have any registry, trauma registry. I mean, we had one before in which Dr. Sabaria started about a decade ago, but it stopped halfway due to unforeseen circumstances. Yeah. So now we have started again. Hopefully we can keep the momentum, okay, sustain this registry and try to benefit from it. Okay. So my second question goes to Dr. Nuraida. Okay. So what are our long-term strategic plans in registry sustenance and development under Pusat Informatik Kesihatan?
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam Malaysia Madani. Terima kasih. Thank you for that question. I think perhaps you may know that Pusat Informatik Kesihatan is actually one part of bahagian perancangan. So our role is actually assisting Ministry of Health, basically our counterparts in order to setting up the registry. Initially, we are managing mainly inpatient data from administrative data, which we call the Sistem Maklumat Rawatan Pelanggan, SFRP, and e-reporting. However, I think since 2012, all the registries previously under CRC at that time were transferred or migrate to PIK because of some issues in terms of funding and funding manager. So we are tasked to actually assist in supporting the development as well as maintaining this registry. I think in terms of supporting technical of data standards, that's what we are tasked for. Basically, this registry consists of this clinical database. So apart from PIK, the stakeholders involved, especially in particular for trauma registry, we have Dr. Shahjahan and his team to actually champion this formation of this registry. In PIK, we are actually finding the appropriate funding, approvals from this level, various levels of committee that we have, because to develop this funding, we are using the government's money, people's money. So our role is actually to ensure the money is well spent and giving the benefits to the people. We are also assisting in terms of governing data governance as well, giving expert opinions from the SMEs with regards to what is the best way to actually set up this registry in terms of technical requirements, security requirements, the user access control policy, and etc. For your information, MTR is among, I think, more than 20 registries that we have in PIK. The previous registry when transferred from CRC is about 26, 29 registries. So most of these registries that we can group together, for example, the cancer is already in our Malaysian data warehouse database. However, this registry that we think that has a unique needs and unique data that have been collected depends on the context and where the data is collected, that we have developed a little bit later. That's why this MTR is only developed in, I think, 2020, where I just came to PIK then. So I think this is a journey. This moving forward is a journey. Of course, there are some hiccups here and there. I admit that we are in PIK still learning, but I think with the support from Dr. Shah's and team, I think this MTR will be successful in the future. So in terms of long term, I think yes, PIK will, with the bahagian pengurusan maklumat, is actually streamlining all the registries, because actually we have identified what are the common data that requires from each of these registry. But I think we have to actually customize according to the needs and the requirements and the output expected from this registry in the future. I think I can share in terms of development of ICT project in the government, it may take a long time. The conventional way of getting budget is perhaps a little bit long. So I think it's a good way actually for each of our stakeholders to actually find an alternative way in terms of the funding, perhaps a public-private partnership or support from the society, actually to accelerate the movement or the development for this registry in the future. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Naraida. So I believe one of the most important thing that is needed to sustain a registry will be support from the government. Support from the government in terms, mainly in terms of finance. Okay. So I heard a talk before by Tim Coates, one of the main coordinator of TAN registry in UK. So he said the first thing that he did when he wanted to start a registry was he went and met the minister to get their support. So that was the first thing that he did. Okay. So my next question will go to Encik Zahir from Myros. Okay. How does the data from Malaysian Trauma Registry can be utilized to improve the road safety measures and future planning in Malaysia?
Assalamualaikum and good morning, everyone. Thank you for the question. I think for first and foremost, I think the data is valuable for us to evaluate the intervention and also the initiative that the government plan for Malaysia. For example, I think the current policy or intervention that government introduced is the mandatory child restraint system for children in a car. So I think, so once the policy introduced, we want to know whether those injury is still occurring or how is the trend. So how we can improve in terms of the policy. I mean, fine-tuning the policy to maybe once the introduction of the child restraint, maybe we introduce new injury or new type of where we don't look before, because in laboratory we test in controlled environment, so maybe in real world there is something that we overlook. So that is something that we the data from the injury is very important for us. So to know whether the intervention works, and also there is also that we want to know if there is a new trend developing from the injuries. That is I think the number one. And number two is from the database. I think when we look at the trend, maybe we maybe whether the trend is the trend for the injury is serious or not. Maybe we from the data we can plan for a new intervention. Maybe the intervention before, like the safety feature in the car, for example. The common thing, I think, for example, I think maybe there is better example, but like takes airbag, for example, maybe in crash, it's safe, but somehow it introduce some kind of injury, like say, because the car is designed for using the dummy, which is the dummy is developed using the overseas data, so which is maybe not really relate to the Asian figures, or probably Asian. So maybe those kind of data will help us to improve in terms of vehicle design. So something that we can give feedback to the manufacturer, and also maybe as a regulation for the government to set for the manufacturer to meet in the future. I think that is I think most the important thing that we look from the data.
Thank you, Mr. Zare. So if you look at the data set in the MTR registry, in the first section, you can see that you have to fill up information about, for example, the position of the patient in the vehicle. Okay, for example, which seat the passenger was occupying. So those are the one of the important information that needed by the MIROS to plan or develop and improve the road safety measures. So if you can please try to fill up those sections in order to help MIROS. I know it's not in the core component, it's the extended component. But if you have those information regarding the safety, for example, the seat belt usage, the helmet usage, all those informations are very, very important for institute like MIROS, for them to develop research and develop improvement in the future. So please try to fill those blanks up. Yeah. All right. Okay. So my next question will go to Dr. Muhammad Zulfadli from NIH. So data generated from the MTR will be invaluable to the development of new strategic policies and trauma outcome research in Malaysia. So what is the role of NIH to encourage new research development, especially among the Ministry of Health hospitals, where I believe the rate of research development is currently not at a very, is very low among the Ministry of Health hospitals. Yeah, right.
Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you so much for that question. So the question is how NIH can facilitate the research activities, especially among the MOH hospitals fraternity, right? So before I deep dive into that question, perhaps it's better for me to explain that NIH is the research arm of Ministry of Health, as we all know. And our core business comprised of three major activities, namely research, consultancy, and training. And we use these core business activities as our way to create opportunities and to enhance the research activities among all MOH personnel. So if we zoom in into the medical fraternity, or in this case, the hospital fraternity, right? The way NIH works is that we provide the right enablers, tailoring to the, whether the readiness of the hospital itself. I'm not going to talk about whether the infrastructure and whatnot, but rather more in terms of how ready the personnel in embarking on a research journey. If I may elaborate further, I would like to divide into two major groups. I'm sure we are all, one way or another, fall into one of these groups. The first group will be those that who have this hesitancy to conduct research at the first place. The moment you dengar the word research, terus shut down, right? For various reasons lah. So for this, the way we enable them is by providing capacity training, capacity building through training, a gentle introduction what research is all about. We provided courses, right? Which generally more or less is free of charge to MOH personnel. In terms of research methodology, for example, introduction to research, like what we did yesterday in some of the in the workshop, right? Also, some of the groups in MOH also invited us to conduct workshops, for example, to tailor to their needs. All right, so that's number one. So for the reason we do that is for us to create a spark. So from this spectrum, or yang tak nak buat research, or at least, this is research, it's not really a far-fetched and a foreign idea. Perhaps then I can start moving on to actually conducting research. Now, the second group are those who have some familiarity or some experience in research, but they want to further their journey in research. The way we enable them is providing them with the right resources. Of course, NIH, we facilitate by providing the funding in terms of MOH research grant, that's one. But what is more important is in terms of the expertise that we can offer. NIH comprised of 6 research institutes covering different health aspects, right? If we relate to trauma, for example, for example, some of the cases, you think that there are some element of biomarkers that can predict the survival of a patient, and then probably you want to link with our experts in IMR, so medical research. If you think about what are the behavior that leads to all this high risk behavior that leads to trauma, then we have the health behavior research team to help you out as well. All right, you want to look at the pattern of injuries, IKU can help. If you look at the more upstream level, economic evaluation, what are the social determinants of health that leads to trauma injuries, you have IHSR. If you look at whether the health management aspect, you have your health management institute. And of course, you have your CRT network under ICR for the clinical related trials and studies. On top of that, we also have the Office of NIH Manager that helps to facilitate your research life cycle. Where I'm in at the moment, the Sector for Biostatistics, for example, we provide consultancy and training for those who want to embark on their research journey, for us to provide ways how to do your statistics analysis and so on. Under the Office of NIH Manager, we also provide guidelines on how you conduct your research and as well how you synthesize evidence. So what I'm trying to show here is that the resources is here. It's all about you guys tapping into the resources, and that will help to accelerate. But towards the end of the spectrum of your research, for us to encourage people to do research, right? One of the things is that if they can find research is rewarding enough, is when you can translate those evidence into practice. And this is when we facilitate as well. Of course, like what Dr. Norizan mentioned this morning, we have our conferences as well, NCCR, NIH, for you to deliver your scientific evidence, for example. We can also offer help in terms of writing your scientific publication and so on. That's in the scientific community. Beyond that, we are also the NIH is working very closely with the policymakers. So we have very much experience in how we can push those evidence to be taken up by policymakers. So that is one thing that you guys want to take advantage as well. And last but not least, in terms of sustainability or enhance the return of value of your research, particularly on primary research data, we have our own research data repository whereby you can curate or park your data there so that the data will then be utilized later on, right? For different angle of research and so on. So in a nutshell, yes, in terms of moving forward, how to ensure that the hospitals enhance their research activities, we are here to help, and it's best for us to be part of your close allies, if you like, for us to push it forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Zulfadli. So now you know there are so many platforms for you to get help from. So please start doing your research and get help from NIH. They are more than happy to help you all, right? We have so many data in our country which are underutilized, not being used to develop research, right? Without doing research, you cannot improve the service, right? We are so much dependent on our Western countries who is continuously doing research to improve their system. Meanwhile, we are not utilizing our own data. So this is your chance. For example, now we have this trauma registry. Please utilize it and develop research and try to improve the service. All right. Okay. So we again go to Dr. Shah Jahan. All right. So my next question will be, what are the challenges that we are currently facing in developing and updating the Malaysian trauma registry. I believe because it's still new, there might be many problems and challenges that we are facing in order to sustain and in order to keep going and keep improving it. Yeah, Dr. Shah Jahan.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ibrahim. So, in the aspect of challenges, perhaps it's very hard to say or to know where to start on this. There are, I think, suffice to say that there are enough supply of challenges for us at this juncture. Nevertheless, I think looking beyond the challenges is there's definitely going to be many hurdles, especially when we are to embark into a development of a national registry, more so pertaining to a division or a field which involves so many fields of clinical specialties to begin with, involves more than one single ministry, is interministerial, and as well as requires an entire, not just a government, but a population approach to solve a problem. Taking up such a challenge like that is it's a very tall order. So I guess having challenges is something which is ensued into this process. We should not look at hurdles that come in as problems, but however, we should look at it as part and parcel of the development phase. We have simple things to say. For example, there's always this challenge. There's going to be a human resource challenge. There's going to be a financial challenge. There's going to be expertise development challenge. There's going to be bureaucracy. And we have to be able together as a team to be able to look beyond all this. If we are going to look at the challenges as the hurdles that will make us determine whether do we proceed or not, by far we have lost that battle from the beginning. I've spoken to, I had the privilege to be able to speak to many of those or some of those who had the initial challenges and today are developing world registry levels. For example, Professor Peter Cameron, who was kind enough to spend some time with us yesterday online, he is the sole man developing the VStorm, which is today the second largest trauma registry globally and among the most advanced in survival prediction modeling. He said that, I mean, the challenges that he has faced is also, I would say, of a large magnitude. But 20 years down the road, they are global leaders. For us too, where we stand today, for example, I would compare data, apple to apple data, at the number of deaths per 100,000 road users yearly is where Australia was exactly 30 years ago at 19.8. So easy to say that we are 30 years behind them in that one single perspective numerator aspect. When it comes to registry, I would say we are similarly 30 years behind them too, because that was the amount of time they took to starting the registry, and that's where we are now. Our measure of success will be determinant on no single one factor. It's going to be determinant by the amount of dedication that not just us, perhaps most what I see in front here are majority clinicians, not just us from emergency, but it's going to be also our colleagues, our friends from other ministries, our colleagues and friends, research experts, clinical and non-clinical scientists from within our own ministry, within various divisions, for example, from Pusat Informatik Kesihatan, National Institute of Health, and all of us together, if we are able to streamline one single process, it may take a bit of time for us to gel together to see one vision, but the moment that happens, I think similar to many other things that we have had proven in the past, there's nothing stopping us from being similarly a regional, if not a global appear in trauma registries. The main challenge, I would say, is this: translating data into evidence is what we try to do. Translating evidence into meaningful practice is what we have to do. But measuring the meaningful practice and enforcing the meaningful practice, or practicing it through clinical guidelines and etc., and saving more lives and reducing death, that is the real challenge. So as long as we are heading that way, I think the challenge is only one. If we can bypass whatever is in front of us. If we look in front of us, of course, there's so many things, you know. But I think the true challenge is only one. Are we able to reduce number of deaths from trauma year by year from this point onwards? That's, I think, a responsibility we all have together. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shah Jahan. So our main aim is now to reduce morbidity and mortality following trauma. So that will be one of our main objectives to achieve in near future, right? So if you look at the WHO objective, they want to reduce the death due to trauma by 50% at year 2030, right? So my next question goes to Dr. Nuraida again. So Dr. Nuraida, what are the cyber security measures in place to safeguard the data that have been stored in the registry?
Thank you for that question. I'm not actually a cybersecurity specialist, but actually since our scope is actually to ensure the system that we implement for trauma registry is secure, then I think I can speak on behalf of my colleague. So basically, what we mean by cybersecurity is actually protecting the electronic information, assets from authorized access, use, and disclosure, with the goals to CIA, protecting confidentiality, integrity, data integrity, and availability. So I think it's a common practice for us for any electronic system, likewise that we have in our banking system. I think the main three factors is individual, the system itself, and the institution or the organization. And in terms of individual, I think we as the end user must make sure we protect the password, and in the system we have the multi-factor authentication. So it's in ourselves actually to ensure that data that we collect, that we input in that MTR system is a truthful data, then our access rights is not to be shared with other individual. And the second one, in terms of technology and system, in MTR, we are actually hosting under the Malaysian Head Data Warehouse system. So we have the multi-factor authentication. I think yesterday you have a session where we register our user properly. I mean, we make sure who can have the access is actually authentic. I mean, betul-betul staff KKM and the people that actually using the data for their purpose. And in terms of technology, of course, we abide to whatever the security standards in ISO, ISMS, and etc. In terms of system, that is physical, networks, and so on and so forth. So within MOH itself, we are under a secure network by MyGov network, and there are firewalls in order to prevent intrusion by malicious intruders. I think if you know or if you can remember, when I was joined PIK, there was incident of data breaches actually. Data breach, I think, involving one of the registry. That was at the transition time. So there was a hearsay from the news website, online news website. They say that a group of data from certain of disease is exposed. So actually, It's not a data breach. Of course, it looks a data breach, but actually someone individual actually has exposed. The technical requirements already there, but it's the individual is actually posting that data that's involved in that project actually upload the data in the website, and the data was just uploaded, I think, a few hours, and then it just removed. Yeah? Even then, our Naksa people cannot actually trace who actually the culprit actually exposing the data. And then the third one, I think, is this institution. That means the regulation, the policy that we have. In KKM, we have the data, dasar keselamatan ICT, and each of our hospital, we have the IT department actually responsible in order to instill the awareness with regards to protecting the security of the data that we input in the system. I think that's all the measures that we as individual and how we contribute in order for us to maintain the data privacy and the security of the data in our registry system. Yeah.
I have another question to Dr. Noraida. So how accessible is the registry's data to the researchers? For example, kalau orang kita ni kalau susah nak access ni, they even to get into this, to do a research is difficult. When the access is a bit complicated or not easy, they will be more reluctant to develop a research. So can you explain to us how accessible is the registry to the researchers or any healthcare professionals and also policymakers?
Yeah. I think that's favorite question from everyone. Because every day we receive complaint that registry, actually MyHW itself is very, very difficult to be accessible. Of course, we are collecting patients' data, which is sensitive and perhaps have a security value. We already have a procedure in place in terms of accessing. Perhaps you all already know, every research that to be conducted within KKM facility must be registered to NMR. Itulah syarat yang paling pertama sekali. Every data request that we receive from PIK with regard to research must have an NMR and ethical clearance. In terms of who can have access, I think in each registry we already have set up the data governance structure. The principal investigator macam MTR, Dr. Shah, will have allow at which level the data of each particular institution or each particular region that this particular individual have access. So whether you want to perhaps do a routine investigation, or perhaps you just want to see a descriptive data, that individual personnel that has been assigned for one particular district or one particular institution can have a look at that data. But in terms of data that is nationwide, that perhaps research that is so nationwide or maybe a region, they have to follow the usual protocol, submit the proposal to NMR, and when they have the NMR clearance and ethics clearance, then PIK will assist to have the access data. And one particular in MyW or in PIK, we usually a little bit hesitant in allowing researcher to get data with identifier, because it will actually breach in terms of data confidentiality. So usually what we do is, if like say you are in an institution, you already have your set of data set, your patient data. Perhaps with the usual process, you have consent from our subject, right? So with that comes consent from the subject, you have their ID, the group of this ID, you come over to PIK and you the data matching in PIK. So in PIK we do not actually give the patient data with the ID. The researcher comes to PIK and do the data matching for that particular subject or patient. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Noraida. Okay, so now we move to Mr. Zare again from MyROS. Mr. Zare, where do we stand as a nation when compared regionally and globally in advancement of transport and road safety initiatives?
Okay, thank you. Initiative, you mean, right? So I think there is different thing between the outcome and initiative. So in terms of initiative, I think Malaysia are in lack of initiative because a lot of plan for road safety we have. I mean, every 10 years we have road safety plan for Malaysia. So in terms of initiative, we don't have shortage of initiative. So in terms of regionally, I think Malaysia is comfortable, I think, in terms of being the leader. So Myra itself is a center for Asian road safety. And most of initiative that we did is, I think it's on Asian level. For example, I think is Asian NCAP for assessment for new car. So it's Asian level. So, and also other initiatives as well. That is, we are among the first in the Asian at least to implement in terms of new policy. For example, for vehicle, for example, like say electronic safety control. I think we are among the first nation in the region to implement those kind of mandatory for vehicle. So I don't think we have problem for to be the leader in the region, especially in Asian. But globally, I think like I think Dr. Shah mentioned earlier on the data itself. I think that is one of I think we are really lag behind because from my side also, we also having trouble to justify whatever finding by using evidence based. So whatever intervention that we plan, so we lack of those to support our plan for the policy. So that is one of I think area that we are really lack of. But others in terms of intervention, for example, I think related to motorcycle, I think globally, I think we are quite a bit leader in those category because our problem in Malaysia and also in the region is motorcycle. So initiatives related to motorcycle, I think we are, I think in the leader. For example, I think one of the solution that I think it started like 30 years ago is initiative on separate motorcycle lane. So I think it's we are the first nation in the world to implement it, and other country is learning from Malaysia how we implement the motorcycle lane. And others is also we are planning now to do similar rating for motorcycle to give rating similar to NCAP. So I think in that sense we are first in the world to also generate a rating for motorcycle. So in nutshell, I think in the region we are doing pretty good, but in globally, I think there are areas that we need to improve. So because road safety is multidisciplinary, that involve a lot of agency, so that's require a lot of effort that we need to work together to improve, so that we can catch up with the rest of the world.
Thank you, Mr. Zare. So within the region, we are doing good, but globally, still a lot of work to do. All right. So if you go to Myra's website, that you can find that there are actually a lot of initiatives and researches done by Myros to improve road safety. You'll be surprised to see the number of research that they have produced. So please go to Myros website and find out about their initiatives, right? Okay. So my last question will go to Dr. Zulfadli. So the last question for the day, all right? Dr. Zulfadli, how can we elevate MTR to higher level to maximize data utilization? For example, integrating the data and evidence that it produces into decision-making process.
Thank you. That's a quite heavy loaded question, by the way. So the question is, how can we elevate MTR in terms of utilization, right? So first and foremost, from the research perspective, it's not about just getting the data and then come up with some research output and try to force that into evidence, into practice and so on. the foundation of any system that utilize data has to be strong. All right. So the key is that any organization that utilize data, the notion is that you strongly believe that data is your most important commodity. That's rule number one. All right. Once you buy into that idea, the next step is how to ensure that you menatang minyak dengan penuh lah all this data to be fully utilized. And for this, I would like to introduce the concept of having a strong data strategy. Data strategy means conscious actions that you take to ensure that the data is being utilized fully. And I would like to highlight 3 major actions that perhaps MTR can also adapt. Action number 1 is to ensure good acquisition of data. And I'm very, very encouraged to see for the past 2-3 days that MTR is actually moving towards that direction, right? Ensuring the right data quality, ensuring the right data governance, and linking with PIK, which has a strong expertise in terms of data governance, in terms of quality, security, is the right move. And yourself, having your own team, how to manage at state level, hospital level. So that's more or less checklist are clear in that sense. But then having governance is not enough, right? You need to instill the right data culture. Right? No point you ada all this governance, but then because it's voluntary, right? When people just acuh tak acuh letak je data, then you will get the garbage in, garbage out lah. So how to ensure the right data culture? This moves to the second point, is turning those data into insight, right? And the term is what is known as data democratization, whereby all this while, traditionally, people on the ground, they key in the data, they naik atas, senyap, tak turun bawah. Kan? And then people on the ground, like, what's the point of me putting all this data? So if you have a conscious effort, actions to ensure that the data that has been keyed in by those on the ground, being translated back to them, for them to utilize in their decision making, and then you will have that feedback loop to ensure data democratization, hence enhancing your data culture. Again, another checklist has been ticked by the presentation on the dashboard just now. So it can help on a bird's eye view, all right, this is my performance and so on, right? So that's number 2. But so another thing about turning data into insight is, again, like I said, utilizing us in NIH, because we can do so many things with those data, right? Turn into research and so on. One example I would like to give, in Singapore, they actually use trauma registry. They look into children and adolescents, and they found out that the main cause of trauma injury, right, traumatic brain injury, is because of cycling accidents. Kan? So from that simple evidence, they can actually push for the government to impose legislation for children to wear helmets and to add the road safety punya curriculum in their education system. So you can see, even as simple as that can actually make a lot of difference, which brings me to the third point. Having the right acquisition of data, turning data into insight. In terms of sustainability, you cannot stand alone as MTR. You need to think about inter-collaboration from day one, because you have to remain relevant, right? And there's no way that you can get the whole picture by using just one source of data. Let's face it. So I just came back recently from Seoul on a big data analytics training. This is very interesting. In their social protection movement, right? Their social welfare department, they have moved into prescriptive analytics. They've gathered a few sources, data sources from suicidal registry, trauma registry, and so on, for them to come up with an algorithm to pinpoint, oh, actually this person supposed to receive benefits. Right? So they identify, oh, these are the pockets of people tak dapat, but because of this algorithm, oh, kita boleh ketuk rumah dia, before they apply, dah bagi dah. So you imagine if MTR can be embedded into JKM, for example, right? Before you dapat, oh, rather than dia minta apply the OKU ke apa semua, dah, JKM dah ketuk pintu dah. Kat hospital kita dah boleh bagi, for example. So once you dah once you have that data linkage, right, then you can see JKM is dependent on your registry. You can handle your sustainability in that sense and remain relevant. So that's one very crude example. But all in all, to turn your data into a bigger impact, you need this strong data strategy, acquisition of data with the right data governance and infrastructure, turn those data into insights, utilize again, NIH, universities to help you out how to turn it into that insight. And of course, leverage on other entities that might benefit from your MTR rather than just zooming in within yourself. So these 4 entities in front of us here, we can start that environment, for example, and then we can showcase how we all 4 of us can work seamlessly, and we can expand this process. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you very much for the very insightful explanation. All right. So the key word here is we have to work together, right? So kalau asyik nak cari salah orang je susah. So we have to work together in order to sustain the registry, to keep going, to improve the system, and bring our country to next level. All right. So with that, we conclude the forum today. I would like to thank all our 4 distinguished panelists for that very informative session. Please give them a round of applause. All right, with that, we end our forum today. All right, thank you very much.